Welcome, everybody, to Funeral Nation episode 187. I'm Ryan Thogmartin. That guy's Jeff, the Funeral Commander Harbison. And this is the only weekly news show serving the funeral profession worldwide.
Worldwide. We're touching folks everywhere virtually because otherwise we have to stay 6 feet apart. But
right.
You're right. And this has been a heck of a week so far. And of course, this wouldn't work on this show or anything with Funeral Nation if it wasn't for our company, our friends at C&J Financial. I mean, we've been blessed that all of our folks are operational. Mm-hmm. And we're still able to get those insurance assignments to the funeral home, take care of families. And, frankly, this is, if you need to think about this, that with the layoffs and all that's going on at this point, the use of insurance proceeds to pay for unexpected funerals is no greater than now. Mm-hmm. So I implore you, give me a call or send me an email and I'll work a special deal for you. How about that? We'll call it the effing deal for our folks out here. How about that?
The best effing insurance deal. It's great. That's great. All right, Jeff.
Ryan, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say this week has been monumental. We had the first ever Funeral Unconference. You were a part of some panel discussions as well as a moderator. We reached thousands, and when I say thousands of funeral professionals, thousands of funeral professionals. We had over 940 some people registered for the conference, and then it's been streamed everywhere and anywhere, which has been pretty awesome. A lot of great panel discussions, really looking at how our profession has been forced to kind of evolve in the last 3 weeks and really ramp up how we use technology. You and I have been preaching on it for at least 3.5 years on this show. The first presentation that I gave at scale on why funeral homes need to be on Facebook and engaging in social media was in 2010. So 10 years, and gosh, we're now understanding why being ahead of the game and being engaging on social was absolutely so important. So it's been a monumental week.
It is, and we talk about this on our segment coming up. By the way, folks, you don't want to miss our guest panel today from the Funeral Foundation. Please, you got to stick around for that because they're offering something that has an effect or can help everyone that's out there in the field. Mm-hmm. But the point being is that if this would have happened 10, 25 years ago, our profession would be in the toilet. And I know that there's firms that, have old websites and they don't use technology. They have, that kid up there with the earrings and, the drug dealer or whatever they want to call you.
That's right.
He doesn't know what he's talking about. Now you're a genius, right? And so I still think that there's not a significant portion, but there is a segment of our profession that's suffering because they just did not step up. And now is the time to make it happen.
Yeah, there's been this perception that this is death care. Nothing really changes. The family has to come to us. We don't need technology. We don't need Facebook. We don't need social media. Guess what? I've fielded more calls in the last 3 weeks on how do I go live? How do we create a Facebook page? Like, it's been scrambling to figure out how to serve families. And the funeral homes that had things in place already, this has been operations as normal. We're just doing things online versus in person, and it hasn't had that huge of effect. I mean, there's been changes. I mean, we can't disregard that, but they've been able to keep serving and are serving more families now because they've got the technology available to make virtual arrangements and live stream. But I think you and I were talking kind of before we recorded, like, what's the news of kind of the week? And honestly, for me, I think that it's been just seeing how funeral homes across the country are stepping up and getting creative, and not only how they serve families, but how they're serving their community. A number of suppliers that are stepping up, the Funeral Service Foundation putting a fund together. Like, this profession is spread out all over, and we're still one big family. And we've seen in communities, in our own community here in Zanesville, Ohio, one of our clients has reached out to other funeral homes and said, look, if you need staff, if you need a car, if you need somewhere, a parking lot big enough to hold everybody, like funeral homes that are like this all year long, coming together to be able to serve and utilize the resources that they have, sharing PPEs and masks. And, it's a beautiful thing to see. And I just want to throw two real creative ways that we've seen funeral homes step up to be able to still serve families with an in-person viewing, but respect gathering restrictions and our physical distancing that we need to keep. We talked to one funeral home owner today who had a service yesterday where the family and everyone that they invited stayed in their car in the parking lot. And there were about 60 cars in the parking lot. Everybody had their windows down. The funeral home set up big speakers and had a megaphone, and they did the funeral in the parking lot. Everyone could still be in attendance, but they were just in their respective cars with the windows down. Very innovative, still serving the family at a highest capacity. Nobody that attended that funeral is going to forget that and what the funeral home did and how they stepped up. And the other one, we've got a client that has an overhang in their a kind of a drive-through overhang at their property at their front door, where they were able to do an outside drive-through viewing. They bring the body out, families drive through, roll the window down, talk to the grieving family and give condolences and move on. So, it's forced us as a profession to get creative and be innovative in how we serve families.
I'm with you. And here's what concerns me, because we still have a certain amount of folks out here that are saying, well, this isn't that bad, etc. We're seeing in gatherings. I saw one in New York in the middle of the street. It was a funeral, and people are all packed together. In fact, the city is now investigating a funeral. And so we don't need that in the news, folks.
That's right.
This is the real deal. Get creative, step it up. You're forced to change. And I think that's going to be the big issue for us is sooner or later. I mean, we've seen outbreaks from a funeral in Georgia, that actually had a death that came from it, I believe. And if I'm wrong, there was infections. But the point being is, let's not put ourselves in the news because we're doing something stupid. Follow the rules, folks. It's not time to mess up.
That's right. That's right. When we even saw a funeral home in Indiana where 8 of their staff are self-quarantined from serving a family that had someone affected that they didn't know at the time when they were serving that family. So it's dangerous. And I was supposed to deliver the Cincinnati College of Mortuary Science commencement speech in 2 weeks, and that commencement's obviously been canceled. So I'm recording a video that they can send out to all of the graduates, just a short kind of motivational, inspirational, virtual commencement speech. But the point that I'm trying to make in that video is this is what you signed up to do. And this is the profession that you're going into. And if you're sitting there right now, graduating mortuary school, wondering, would I really want to serve a family in this time? You picked the wrong profession. This isn't right for you, because at that oath that you're taking when you make the commitment to serve in this profession, this is the time that you step up and you serve. And this is what you're signed up to do. There's 2 businesses that can't close in every community: the hospital and the funeral home.
Well, let's get on to our distinguished panel from the Funeral Service Foundation. This is exciting, folks. Please tune in and watch this. As we shared with you earlier, we're excited to have a panel with us today of professionals from the Funeral Service Foundation. And so rather than me going through it, we all know each other. How about we start with Lee and introduce yourself, and we go to Kim and to Bob.
Sure. Hi there. I'm Lee Wiensch. I'm the Executive Director of the Funeral Service Foundation. Nice to meet y'all.
Hey, Jeff, thanks. I'm Kim Medici Shelquist, and I'm the Senior Senior Vice President Planning and Development for Homesteaders. And also, perhaps where a passion lies, I am a trustee of the Funeral Service Foundation.
Wow.
I'm Bob Arrington of Arrington Funeral Directors in Jackson, Tennessee, and I'm the immediate past chair of the Funeral Service Foundation.
Excellent. Well, the reason we have you here, number one, thank you for what you're doing for our business out here and our profession. But you had an announcement the other day that the foundation is launching a COVID-19 crisis response fund. So, Lee, would you like to start off sharing with us what's going on there, and certainly Kim and Bob chime in?
Sure. As this whole COVID crisis has evolved, we are working closely. Our offices are housed within the National Funeral Directors Association. We are the philanthropic arm of NFDA. And so we are hearing, before we all went home, we were hearing it in the hallways. And now, of course, we're hearing it on all of our calls about how valiantly funeral directors are responding to this crisis and how much support they are needing already and are going to continue to need over the next months to respond to this crisis. And we knew that as the philanthropic arm of NFDA and really an organization that serves all of funeral service, it was important to us to do something to respond. We have been raising money for years that we can give to great causes. We fund scholarships and continuing education and grants. This is an immediate need, and the foundation has responded in the past to crises. This feels like a really big need in a way that we could get involved in a meaningful way and help immediately.
Okay. And so if y'all could give us some ideas how this fund could be used within our funeral profession.
Well, what we're doing is, of course, the big question is what's next and what will be needed. We think we know, but since we're so early on in the virus and the need and the crisis, obviously New York is where the core is that's giving us most of our information as to what's coming down the line. But just being able to help with supplies, equipment, the basic needs of what funeral directors are going to need now. NFDA has put out a call for any volunteers of anybody that could go to what they're calling hotspots. Possibly this fund could help in those travel expenses of those volunteers so they're not out of pocket trying to help. And then going forward, we suspect there's going to be some grief needs, both for families and probably some grief and mental help for the funeral directors that have been going through this forever. How long it's going to be? It may be another month or 2 or 3. We all know, nobody knows. So it's an overall umbrella to help support funeral service in any way that we know we possibly need now, but also having money there for the unknown as to what may be coming down the line.
Correct. And it's interesting, Bob, that you state that. The known changes every day.
Correct.
And I think this has created within our profession, Ryan and I talked about it earlier this week, that right now the status quo is be fluid. There is nothing right now that's going to be static because it shifts and changes.
Right. Right.
And one of the things that I call back to is the time I spent in hospice care and my time since then working with funeral professionals is that so often we have silos and we don't interact. The community only acts with the funeral home when there's a death, or the hospice only acts with the funeral home when there's a transfer. And we're really now talking about a crisis that brings end of life to the forefront for every single person who turns on the news. And the foundation, and one of the reasons I'm so passionate about the Funeral Service Foundation is because it really is it's focused on creating linkages between all of those very important pieces of the end of life and helping the funeral home connect to the community, helping the funeral professional understand what's happening and identify ways to serve. And so now with this fund to be able to actually support the way that funeral professionals are going to be called to serve in ways that we really can't even imagine yet. Like you said, every day is fluid. We don't know what it's going to look like, but to have a fund that provides support for that activity is just one more way that we all come together in the middle of a really, really trying time for all of us.
I agree.
Absolutely. So how can those in the profession give to the fund or request support from the fund?
So we have a link on our website that's set up now and ready to go to accept donations. That's at funeralservicefoundation.org. We have had some great contributions already. Small contributions, for example, a funeral director the other day saw an email that we put out. He hasn't made a gift to the foundation in about 15 years, but saw this and said, "I'm retired. There's nothing I can do to help right now except this." And it felt great to him to be able to make a gift. So we've had some gifts from individual funeral directors already. The foundation has dedicated $200,000 to this fund as an initial grant, and NFDA gave us a lead gift just today of $50,000, which we're thrilled to have. But individuals and corporations can donate through that funeralservicefoundation.org website. They can also mail us a check or call us at 262-814-1549 to make a gift over the phone. But there's some other great news about gifts that have already been given and a matching gift. And Kim, would you like to announce that?
I would. So I had time to visit with my good friend and my boss, who is the biggest fan of Peyton Manning, apparently, ever. And Steve, as you all know, has been in funeral service for probably his whole career, if you take out a few years as an accountant. And he and I talked, and so homesteaders would like to donate $100,000 to the COVID-19 fund for the Funeral Service Foundation. We want to put that forward as a matching donation. What we'd really like to see is other folks who work in the profession like we do, who care so much about what our professionals are experiencing, to come on and join us and help us get to that 100,000 by creating your own donation. So yeah, this is all we do. All we do is work with funeral professionals. We don't have other lines of business. We're passionate about it. And everyone who works at homesteaders understands how important it is to help families, whether it's to prearrange so they get their wishes honored when the time comes, or whether it's in times like this where we just have to step up and make sure communities and professionals get what they need.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Thank you and homesteaders for stepping up. So everybody heard that that's watching it. So casket companies, fluid companies, everyone else, especially now, I want to go ahead and say this, Kim, your competitors, if you don't step up, they own this. Yeah. So I'm just trying to up the ante for.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. And you are a great promoter. And of course, we like being first, but truly, this is about a company and individuals like Steve Schaefer, who have such a passion for what we do. And we just want to make sure that people are able to do it safely and well, and that they're able to meet the needs of the community. So
I agree with you.
If we can do that, we're happy to do it.
You know, and it's interesting because we are an industry that's really small, a profession. And, you know, what I'm seeing, and Ryan is witness too, that in this time of, you know, a lot of times our competitors, sometimes we won't eat in the same restaurant, but we're saying, Bob, you know that, don't you? That. And, you know, what I've always found interesting is our competitor down the street, you know, is the worst guy in the world until it comes to pricing, and I'm going to be $100 under that guy, but I'll leave that alone. But the point being is we are a small community, and the blessing is at times like this, we all draw in and circle our wagons, and we're seeing that across the industry, you know, especially as you mentioned earlier, where the funeral professionals that are going into the battle zone, you know, that don't even have a lack of a word, a dog in the fight, that they want to help. And so I think we should applaud ourselves and take a step back, because this is a time that I don't think we'll ever see again. And if you don't participate, I think you'll be remiss.
Yeah, and you know, the funeral director DNA is to help. And I think that's a lot of that I think funeral directors are, I don't want to say frustrated, but the fact that they can't help these families, because that's just usually what we do. You know, if they want to, as we've said around here many times, if they want a funeral on the roof, we just figure out how many ladders we got to get. You know, and now they want to have a funeral and the funeral director can't fix it all of a sudden. So that's why we think as a foundation of when I mentioned the support going forward, that this too is going to affect some funeral directors, because we're hurting and grieving for families that we can't help, that 6 months ago we could kind of make it all better. So, and we are a DNA of helping, and I think that's why you'll see volunteers go from Texas to New York and, you know, Missouri to New Orleans. So that's just kind of the way funeral directors are built, and they've always been there to help each other and families especially.
I agree with you. It's like one big family.
Right.
You know, one thing I want to sort of emphasize that we had on earlier, and it's a blessing, but to take a look at the SBA opportunities, all these family-owned businesses or family-owned small business, I implore you to make good use of what's available to you. Interestingly enough, and Ken probably knows this because she watches the death rates with the company, et cetera. But, believe it or not, the last 3 weeks, our death rate has been declining in
Absolutely.
percentages.
Yeah.
And so as much as we hear of what's going on the negative, there are some positive with less people dying, but that doesn't necessarily transcend to our work. So it's awesome how everybody's working together.
Absolutely. Well, this has been fantastic. I applaud the foundation for what you're doing, stepping up, and those that are stepping up and giving as well. The Funeral Nation would like to make $1,000 donation as well to the fund.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
We'll
we
match it.
Thank you. Yeah, homesteaders will match it. So
All
you just
right.
gave two.
Thank you, Ryan.
So
And hey, let me tell you too, you had asked how people can apply for grants, and I
Yeah.
don't want to let this go without letting you know how to do that. So Bob mentioned that we have two funding priorities right now, and the first is emergency assistance, and the second is grief support. So we know that those first grant requests that are going to come in are for that emergency assistance. So we can fund things like supplies and equipment and travel for volunteers. We do have to grant through a 501c3 organization, and we'll walk you through that on our website. But as of Monday, April 6th, there will be an application for people seeking grants from this fund. It'll be live on funeralservicefoundation.org, and you'll be able to give us the information. You can tell us how much money you need, the purpose, all of the contact information, and then who your fiscal agent is. And for many individual funeral directors, for example, it would be their state funeral association that they're a member of. We can help make a grant jointly through them so that they can tax-wise get the money in the right way and make sure that that things are tracked properly. But again, as of Monday, April 6th, that form will be live on funeralservicefoundation.org, and we'll be ready to start accepting grant requests. Our current plan is that we'll review those requests weekly, and that we have a committee that will be reviewing those and approving the requests, and we'll be able to send out money very quickly.
excellent.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well,
I
thank you
wanna-
for all. I'm sorry, Bob. Go ahead.
That's okay. I just wanted to say again, thank you to Kim and Steve and Homesteaders for putting that $100,000 match out there. That will help jumpstart this fund tremendously. But, I'm very grateful, but I'm really not surprised. Homesteaders has always been one that steps up and steps out and steps first. And they've been great supporters of the foundation. Steve is a past trustee and chair, and a great mentor to many of us. So thank you, Homesteaders, but they've always been right there for those of us that need funeral service assistance.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thanks
Good people.
for what you do, Bob.
And thank you, Ryan and Disrupt Media, for that $1,000 pledge. We'll
Absolutely.
send you an invoice.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. I know there's a lot going on, and we appreciate you taking out time to share what the benefits are that you're offering out here. But more so, this is the heart of our business.
Sure.
This is what we do. And I want to implore our folks out in the field, the people who are working, their families who are put in jeopardy because mom or dad's going into the mortuary to work, hang in there. And I just firmly believe that this is not a time to survive. It's a time to thrive, change everything. If this would have happened 25 years ago, we would have been in a mess because we couldn't do what we're doing exactly right now.
True.
So in such a time as this,
True.
don't survive, get out there and thrive. Thank you all.
Thank you. Appreciate your help.
Jeff.
Thank you.
Great stuff. It's how our profession comes together. We see it every day, but it's magnified during this type of time of crisis.
Yeah, and I again, a big shout out to Steve Schaefer. He's been on our show. I know he's a big Peyton Manning fan. Folks will remember. We can pull that back up again. But seriously, Steve and everyone at Homesteaders, you're the epitome of what we need to do in our business. Speaking of which, we have our friends at Plotbox over in Ireland, and we are just excited that they're on board as sponsors. And I hate it because we would have all been together this week.
That's right.
In San Antonio. So that makes it, when we do get together, even more important. But thank you for the folks out there at Plotbox. And we're blessed. If our entire reach here with Funeral Nation has become very significant and watched. And we're hearing back from people that were at the beginning skeptical about what we were doing. And now, how do you like me now? How do you like me now? We're fulfilling the dream that we actually had at the beginning.
That's right. That's right. I mean, this is why we do what we do. And this week has been a testament to that, of how we've been able to virtually bring thousands of funeral professionals together at one time to have big, powerful, high-level conversations where people are learning, adapting, applying to their business, and just sharing. It's interesting, without the conference where we all would have been together, I'm starting to wonder if what we've done virtually has brought more of us together than the actual conference would have. It's interesting, but Kim on our interview said it best. She's like, this is the huggiest profession that there is. And so yes, to miss out on the opportunities to give some handshakes and hug those people that you only see a couple times a year, I think we all can, with a resounding chorus, agree that we missed that opportunity, but glad we can connect in this format.
That's it. Well, brother, thank you for your work. You keep you and your family and company safe up there.
Same
And
to you.
we're going to burn off a lot of coronavirus this weekend. I think we're going to be in the 80s. So I can't necessarily get out and hang out with the buds and the friends, but I might work on my tan a little bit this weekend.
There you go. You can probably work on that golf swing too, right?
Yeah. The golf courses are still open. So that's pretty
Good for
interesting
you.
here.
All right, brother. Thank you so much, Commander. Until next time, have a great effing week.
Out here.